Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. With the migration from rural areas to urban areas an international phenomenon, India has also seen similar movement for several years now. It is expected that by 2050, 70% of the population will be living in cities. It is said that this would mean that around 500 new cities will be needed to accommodate this burgeoning population in urban areas. The NDA government, which came to power last year, had promised that it would set up 100 smart cities across the country. Yesterday, the Union Cabinet approved the Smart Cities Mission and allocated Rs 48,000 crores. It also renamed the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission, started by the UPA government, and named it Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, AMRUT, for which Rs 50,000 crores has been allocated. The two missions combined is expected to improve the quality of life in urban areas and create better and sustainable cities. Today we will look at the concept of the smart cities, how and what will make them, and how it would reshape the urban landscape in the country, and also what are the problems and stumbling blocks that may be encountered in creating these smart cities. To discuss this, I have with me an eminent panel of guests: Ajay Shankar, former Secretary, Department of Planning and Promotion, Government of India, and also someone who was the former CEO of Greater Noida, one of the best cities in India; Sudhir Krishna, former Secretary, Urban Development, Government of India; Jamal H. Ansari, Town and Country Planner and former Director, School of Planning and Architecture; Milap Punya, Professor at the Study of Regional Development, JNU; and Nitin Sethi, Associate Editor, Business Standard. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Sudhir Krishna, what is your concept of a smart city?
I would say that a smart city should be a livable city, enjoyable city, and safe city. And livable in the sense that residents should not be worrying too much about water supply, safe water, electricity supply should be regular, city should be clean, bus facilities, transport facilities should be good, walkability should be there. Such are the parameters for smart cities, and that are all achievable.
Oh, see, when we are talking of smart cities, or when we started hearing of these smart cities, everybody thought that it is going to be some technologically very advanced kind of a city. Is that something what is being
actually that concept of a smart city with IT focus is also there, but that has come from the West, where the basic needs what I mentioned before, like clean city, like good water supply, like electricity supply, like good walkways, is all there already. And therefore, they are talking of a smart city as highly IT-enabled city.
Right.
Now, for us, if the garbage is all over strewn around, and then you talk of, IT-enabled everything, so it doesn't work out very well. So it has to have IT. I'm not saying it is not required. You require IT to manage even the waste. You require IT to manage water supply, and so on and so forth. But then that is the only means. Fundamentally, we have to work on livable, clean cities, and then top it up with IT services, IT-enabled services.
Mr. Ajay Shankar, is that the way you would look at it also?
I entirely agree with him, because
can you give us examples of any cities in India what Sudhir Krishna has described?
No, our best example is the new city of Chandigarh when we built it.
Yes.
It was an extraordinarily smart city. It was a green city. So, I'm not taking name of...
You don't want to take the name of Greater Noida, but I will take it because, according to me, it's one of the best cities in India.
Chandigarh was our model.
And I live there.
Chandigarh was our model. So, the first need of any citizen is the basics. Why should I have to buy drinking water?
Right.
Why do I need to install a water purifier in my home? Why do I have to have an inverter in my home? So those are the basic needs. Why do I see garbage all over the city?
Right.
So those are the basics that have to be done. But as Sudhir has rightly said, that if you use IT and the power of technology, these things can be done better and more efficiently and at lower cost. So the idea of smart city is to combine the strength of technology to give us the most cost-effective solutions. And one good part of the new initiative is that a lot of decentralization is envisaged, in the sense the cities are supposed to come up with their own plans of what is it that they want to do. So that's a great positive.
That's the only positive you see?
No. The real positive, according to me, is that government and society and the political leadership is recognizing the importance of cities for economic development, for economic growth, and for shifting people from rural areas to urban areas. Because that has been the way of modernization and development in all industrializing societies. We have been very late in recognizing the importance of cities as engines of growth.
Mr. Ansari, you know, when we're talking of these smart cities, or when the government is now, the cabinet has approved it, still we are not very clear about what the government has in its mind, though we are reading reports about, you know, here and there. Now, are these cities going to be new cities, or do you think that the old cities can be converted into smart cities?
Yeah, actually, that is the confusion which sort of persists, because when we started, we thought these 100 cities will be entirely new cities.
Right.
But as the time has passed by during last 1 year, the idea seems to be growing that no, all of them would not be new cities. I think the consensus is getting around the idea 50% of them would be new cities and 50% of them would be existing cities which would perhaps be converted into a smart city. Now, if we take the new cities, I think the earlier idea, I think very valid idea was that these new cities would be planned around large metropolitan cities as their satellites, so that the pressure of population on those metropolitan cities can somehow be reduced. And also, I also supported that idea, because I thought by doing that, what we can do is that we can locate the new cities in such places where the land is not fertile, relatively less fertile, and where it is possible to supply water more easily. So I think that is an idea, if pursued, that will be a very good idea. Now, if we come to the idea of existing cities being converted into smart cities, there are many problems. Problems are that how do we choose which cities we are going to make them smart? Because when the whole thing goes through a political process, every state would like to have its share of smart cities.
Absolutely.
And that means finances. So that is one problem which we are going to face.
In fact, sorry to intervene. In fact, on a lighter note, the Urban Development Minister, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu's favorite, favorite words now is that, you know, he is being besieged by every MP, all the 545 MPs, saying that, you know, please give us a smart city.
Of course,
every MP wants a smart city now. So, you know, that's a practical problem which you faced. Sorry, please carry on.
Yeah, and the other problem is that there will be finances which will be required to make them, convert them into smart cities. Now, the other day I was hearing that the Ministry of Urban Development has somehow finalized few criteria on the basis of which these smart cities will be chosen, which will be made more smart. Now, there the basic criteria is perhaps that those cities which have already shown some strength, who have shown the capability of becoming smart, which cities which have shown certain examples of doing infrastructure development through self-financing schemes.
Right.
They will be given a priority for being selected as smart cities. The problem with that kind of a criteria is that then we are going to end up building smart cities only in states which are already far developed. And therefore, we will be ignoring those cities which require these smart cities,
Absolutely.
not only for the purpose of cities, but becoming developed.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. Mr. Sudhir Krishna, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah.
No, after yesterday's cabinet meeting, we were told that there's going to be a competition between different states, and, you know, they will have to come up with some kind of a plan, and then it will be, you know, cities will be chosen from them.
You know, the danger what has been mentioned is absolutely right. That statistically speaking, the states that are less urbanized are poorer also.
Right.
In terms of per capita GSDP, the correlation is very high. Almost as high as 0.8 or something like that, 0.7 points, very high correlation. Bihar, Jharkhand, and other such states that are very poorly urbanized.
Chhattisgarh,
Yes,
Orissa.
even Uttar Pradesh also.
Yes.
Per capita income is low, urbanization levels are also low. So therefore, and these states have been also poor in partaking GNRM funds also.
Right.
So look at the correlation.
Right.
Urbanization, then the per capita income and capacity to absorb funds for urbanization.
Absolutely.
So therefore the solution lies in states coming up to the mark. States have to struggle now. No more the government of India funds will be just, funds are there and you take it. They have to work hard.
They have to,
Yes.
They have to generate their own funds
Not
also.
not only fund, they have to generate their capacity and willpower
To absorb funds also.
to improve things. And in the process, get funds also.
Okay, Professor Punia, how do you look at this? Do you think that, creating 100 new smart cities, which are, from out of nowhere, is better, or to, existing cities, convert them into, how easy is that?
I think coming back to some of my co-panelists and how smart are the cities,
Yeah,
the first point is this. We need to see what would be the
And
yardstick.
what is a smart city?
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think that process still we have not gone through. We need to see how exactly the smart cities are right now and how much more smartness we have to add into it.
Exactly.
And cities making smarter by way of improving them by morphologically, putting infrastructure into place. That is the hardware component of the city. But we also need to keep in mind that we all talking about the people, that the software of the city.
Yes.
How does the software of the city does work? Does it caters the needs of the aspiration of the people, especially the employment? And although one of the neglected area that we are also talking about is the governance issue.
Right.
Do we have a manpower capacity to absorb these funds and to utilize them properly? So it's not only having a city that is livable from environment point of view, clean from the air point of view, but we also need to see that it is socio-ecologically as well as politically livable, and it gives an ample space for everyone to have their own rights. I think we cannot copy some issues or some of the models which are there in Europe. Like Europe has a pan smart city kind of model,
right?
And US also has the same kind of, where in 1980s I think Jan Jacob, she talked about rejuvenation, and I think we are also going through the same phase where we are talking about urban first, rural can wait.
Right.
So but
the concept is that people are going to move from rural areas, so prepare them for that.
Yeah, but you also need to take into, does your smart cities will be having the fence around? Your hinterland, your catchment is also the rural area.
Right.
So we need to keep into that thing also into mind. So that is, I think, we still need to go quite far.
Still, the concept of a smart city is not clear. That's
Right.
what you're trying to say?
Yeah, I think my point is it's not only hardware, it's also about the people, the software of the city.
How much? Yes, Mr. Ansari.
Yeah, this idea of a smart city, one of the best definition I had recently was that a smart city is one which uses its resources smartly. I would like to add on top of that, I would say a smart city is one which takes care of its poor people smartly. Because that is the dimension which has always been missing and will be missing if we don't take care of that particular aspect. Inclusive city is the city which we want, whether we call it smart city or not.
Okay. Nitin, I'll come to you, Mr. Krishna. And Nitin, do you think that there is a clarity of as far as the concept is concerned? It's been almost a year since this government came to power. It came on the promise that it will create these 100 smart cities. I'm sure in the last 1 year, a lot of work must have gone into it. Do you see that clarity in the government now?
I think I do see clarity, and the clarity I see in this government is that it's copy-pasted a lot of stuff that was existing in the previous government's book of good things to be done. So they called it smart growth, this government calls it smart cities. They had the same issues about creating local urban bodies and a cadre of local urban officers. This government asked for the same. The previous government was looking at almost the same things, almost the same share of ratios of expenditure, almost the same kind of reforms. It wanted these funding to be conditional upon the states achieving those targets, the same kind of investment to be brought in from the PPP mode and from other financial tools. In that sense, it's been smart in the sense it's repackaged what was existing and hopefully is packaged it bigger. Now the question really is for me, and I think for all panelists, is 1 lakh crore looks very nice over 5 years, but if you look at it, that is going to be spent over 600 cities, so to say. How much does it really end up being? Consider the fact that one large bus, if you want to buy in Delhi at the moment, costs anything between 50 to 75 lakh rupees or a crore. Now, how much can you really do with 100 crores a year for one city? What are you really trying to generate? Even if you're saying it's a multiplier effect and you will get greater investments from private sector, we all know that the private sector right now is facing a problem that it can't really invest. It's actually looking to the government to invest upfront and then to bail it out over a period. The PPP model has failed so far. So the dependence on a PPP model and dependence on the urban local bodies to generate funds on their own in a ratio which has been untenable so far under the circumstances, I don't know where it's going to go. Two, I think when we talk about smart cities, as most co-panelists of mine have said, we are talking about really just livable cities. But the question we must ask is, who is it livable for? The fact that in the last 7-8 years, 15 million construction workers were added as new employment generation under the last government, the fact is you're going to have a lot of forced migration, a lot of poor people coming to cities not with skills. Now, where is the provision for them in these cities? Are we, in some sense, just generating cities for the middle class? And there is a large number of that as well. But if you are really looking at livable cities, you need to create spaces for all of them.
Absolutely.
And really the funds don't exist at the
Right,
moment.
as Mr. Ansari rightly said, inclusive cities. Mr. Shankar, how do you react to all this?
No, I think the challenges of success in smart cities are enormous. And I think we need to recognize the enormity of the challenge. The foremost challenge is finances. And clearly this amount of money
100 crores per year is a pittance.
So it needs to be multiplied manifold.
Manifold.
But the fact of the matter is that urbanization leads to wealth creation of a kind which should allow you to finance all of this. Historically, even if you look at India, the Delhi Development Authority is sitting on hard cash of thousands of crores after having done so much. So the land values rise, economic activity generates wealth. So it's a question of getting the cities to do the upfront investment and be able to service that investment through wealth creation, through better economic activity. Now that we have not done well in India yet. So that's a huge challenge.
Why have we not done that?
Because we have not looked at cities as engines of growth.
Okay.
The second enormous challenge.
I'll come to you, sir.
The second enormous challenge is
if I might
this
come in.
issue
One second,
of
Nitin, let me finish, I'll come to you.
Issue of inclusiveness, because we somehow presume
Sure.
that we build cities where the poor don't need to live. So we create slums through the way we develop cities. Now,
We encourage creation of development
we
of
don't
slums.
create living spaces for the working poor, so where do they go? And we can't live without them. So that is going to be a huge challenge, because the way land markets are working, we have to see this as a major problem. The third issue is that the hardcore capacity to grapple with the complex issues of a smart city and to design projects and to deliver them is non-existent, practically non-existent. So we need a huge managerial revolution to be able to achieve what we want.
I'll come to you, but I have one question. You were talking about the issue of, the poor not being taken into account at all in our urban planning processes. You were the CEO of Greater Noida. Was this element included in that, or how far you were successful in that at all?
You see, I'll put it like this, that in the days where state-led urban development, then the state used to provide LIG, EWS housing.
Right.
When the state retreated and left it to the market doesn't find it worth its while to invest for LIG, EWS housing. So the urban development permissions stipulate some 30% earmarking, but that is fiction. So unless the state is able to grapple creatively with this problem and come to the conclusion that cities without the working population cannot succeed.
Cannot sustain.
Historically, council housing was done, dormitories were built, all kinds of things have been done by other countries. So we need to create workspaces for the working poor. Only then will the city be smart and will it succeed.
Absolutely. Yes, Nitin, you wanted to get in?
Yeah, I wanted to, just pose it to the panel as well as and put it to you and our audience, is if you look at what the High Part Committee just before this government came out with the cabinet decision really suggested, it said we need a minimum of 7 lakh crores to begin with, topping it up with a multiplier effect from the private investment, from the urban local bodies, generating funds through different kinds of financial tools. What we now come down to is roughly 1 lakh crores for 600 cities. Now, it sounds very nice and it's part of the government's manifesto, therefore it's on the table. I would say it would have made sense to say, why not look at 10 cities and create those 10 cities in the 5-year period that we have before us. If you look at the history of JNNURM, this is exactly why it's fallen flat. You've had these sporadic programs spread across different cities, one sewage canal system set up somewhere, one augmentation of a water system somewhere. It's it needs to be done. It's an incremental game. It is not a big star
It can't
game at
be-
the
it-
moment. You
okay.
really cannot, as everyone on the panel
Okay.
is saying, you can't create a Singapore out of nothing.
Okay. Mr. Sudhir
I
Vishnu.
can say that
No, well, I have a question also. You think that creating new cities is better or to rejuvenate the existing ones as smart cities?
on this, I would say that we have to focus on rejuvenating the existing cities because that is where life is. You see the case of Naya Raipur. Huge investment has been made in Naya Raipur and still it is not lively, still not vibrant. It will take time. And why to neglect old Raipur? What is the fault? You see the case of Gandhinagar versus Ahmedabad.
Ahmedabad.
You go to Gandhinagar, so well designed, but after sunset you feel like going to Ahmedabad.
Yes.
That is where life is.
Yes.
And so on and so forth. Of course, Navi Mumbai is a very good example of a vibrant new city. But so we have to understand that old cities are where the life is and we cannot neglect our brothers and sisters who are living in the old cities. We have to give them, and they have lived there for generations. That is one. And secondly, I would say that connectivity is fundamental, which we have neglected. Why slums have come about? Because people are not able to go to farther places and live safely there.
Absolutely.
So they prefer to congregate in the heart of the city, closer to workplaces.
Or closer to their
Than that.
workplaces.
Yes. And thirdly, I would say that the financing of a smart city need not be so much of a worry, provided we have a framework clear in our mind. For example, street lighting. Now there are large number. We started a couple of years ago experiment of street lighting, which pays for itself, because if you switch over the traditional lighting with LED lighting, which is intelligent controlled, then you save on the electricity consumption.
Right.
And over a 7-year, 5-year period, you recover all the investment, and thereafter you go on having savings.
So you're saying that the finances should not be such a major issue?
Yes, it is not a major
to start
issue.
off with.
I'm just trying to make a micro example out of the macro issue suggested by Ajay Shankar Sahab, where he said that cities create wealth. Right. And that is true. If cities create wealth, then where is the question of shortage of wealth to develop a city? It is a question of the beneficiaries of that wealth. From them, we should take some fund in terms of development charges, in terms of user charges, in terms of some fees, which ultimately funds the city infrastructure.
Professor Punya, so, the concept, as Mr. Ansari was pointing out, and we are still not clear whether it's going to be new cities going to be developed or the existing ones are going to be invested in as smart cities. In this, let us assume that the existing cities will be because from what we are reading that there's going to be a competition among the states. They have to come out with their proposals and things like that. The best ones will get to be selected as smart cities. In that kind of a scenario, how do you envisage what are the ingredients necessary for that?
I think the direct question could be which cities will be selected, So one could be like, as co-panelists have just said, that it would be like a retrofitting the existing cities.
Exactly. But they're talking of retrofitting.
Yeah. But how do you select them? And let's assume a situation.
Retrofitting, they're talking of 4 things. Retrofitting, redevelopment, pan-city initiatives, and development of new cities. They're talking of development of new cities. Also.
Now, the moment when we talk about a new city, so we need to visualize a scenario, a region, ecosystem.
But as Mr. Krishna rightly pointed out, Naya Raipur getting all the attention, still people are not...
Yeah, I'm coming back to that.
Yeah.
I'm coming back to that. Let's visualize a situation in a region that we need to put a city somewhere there is no network of accessibility and connectivity. So how did that particular would-be city will be surviving? We need a good ecosystem to mobilize the surplus into the region, and finally that what accumulates the wealth into a primate city. So this is how a system works. So we need to find out, in spite of having a new cities, it's better to look at the existing cities. But we have another challenge. In this particular decade, we have added about 91 million people into the urban basket. That amounts to 377 million people. And as you said, I'm not that optimistic that we will be having 70% population by 2050. Let's see, by going the current growth rate, we would be somewhere around, say, 40 or around 40% areas would be urbanized. Now, coming to that, out of 7,000 urban areas, which we are going to select? Say class 1 towns, that's amount about 500. And then you have another 100 cities, that is 600 cities. So I think that would be more of the retrofitting, selecting, and there would be competition, as you said, among the states. They will be coming up with their own names. And finally, that will add into the 100. And then rest of the class 1 cities could be accommodated as a 500 cities.
Okay. Mr. Ansari, What has been the experience in countries abroad? And can we take any of these places as a role model, do you think? Or you think that India is a special case, we need to develop our own models?
Well, of course, I believe very firmly that we must develop our own model by thinking fundamentally. There is no point in looking at Paris or Shanghai or any other place. We have got smart cities in our country. Jaipur is a beautiful city, Udaipur is a beautiful city. There are so many of them we can take recourse to. The point is that when we do look at Paris, London and New York, we get lost into those high-rise buildings, wide roads, fast-moving roads, these cars and trains, and we forget about our own fundamental problems. I think our problem is that if we can somehow in a city increase water supply from 2 hours a day to 4 hours a day, reduce short power cuttage from 8 hours to 4 hours, that is a great sense of smartness. I mean, that is what we want. And one point which I would like to Mr. Ajay Shankar's response, finance I don't think in India has been a challenge, because so much of money allocated for different schemes remains unspent. In fact, we have to learn the ability to spend the money.
In fact, Mr. Sudhir Krishna rightly pointed out, municipalities, towns, they don't even have the capacity to absorb the funds which are given to them.
Yes.
Even JNU-RM.
JNU-RM is a classic example.
I'd like to make 2 points. One is that given the need for development and given the need to create more productive jobs, I think we will see both redevelopment of existing cities and their rapid expansion, but we will also see the emergence of new cities.
Yeah,
the whole industrial corridor project, the Delhi, Mumbai, etc., would lead and should lead to the creation of new industrial townships. And I think
in these corridors itself, these smart cities can be part of that.
They are planned.
Yes.
So about 6 smart cities are planned along the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor. The idea being that you take the old, say, steel township, Jamshedpur, you build on that idea, have an anchor investor, and then create a whole metropolitan city around it. Because what India needs in the few decades is gigantic. So that is one. The other point which has not been made till now, and I think it needs to be made, that till we create a political system where political careers are to be made by being successful makers of smart cities, we will not see the outcome we need. The country of Germany has produced 2 chancellors who are mayors of cities.
Yes.
China Politburo membership, I don't know the details, but many people have made their name as developers of their new eastern coastal areas or Shanghai. So I think we need that shift in governance structures where political careers are to be made by demonstrating success, not at the state government level, but by making cities smart. Then we will get the full traction.
Mr. Krishna,
because civil servants alone cannot do this. Smart cities. I have been a civil servant.
The biggest stumbling block, if we have to think.
Yes. The institutional labyrinth is the biggest biggest block in getting smart cities or making cities smarter. I mean, you would like to see the city being led by the municipality, but municipality is just one of the numerous players who are equally empowered and at times more empowered, either financially or legally. For example, you have got development authority, you have got environment authority, you have got police authority, you have got transport authority, you have got urban arts authority, and so on and so forth. It has to be a singular authority, which is nothing but municipality.
The multiplicity of authorities can be one of the biggest challenges.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Very quick last words, sir.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge would be leveraging some more legislative powers to the decentralized planning at the city level, point number 1. And then enhancing the capacity as well as the leadership that can strive to make the cities inclusive, socially, ecologically viable.
Okay. I think on that note, we need to end. We're completely run out of time. But it's an interesting discussion. As we go along, I'm sure there'll be more and more clarity, but also the problems which can be encountered will also need to be taken note of. I think all my panelists have given enough for the government and people who are going to be taking up this smart city mission to think about. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.